When you go into a Scientology organization, there are two places where you can do classwork or training or courses. Division 6 is the public-facing division of Scientology. In any Scientology service organization, there's a Division 6 area where new people get courses or training. And if you come in and you sign up for a communications class or how to improve conditions in life or how to overcome ups and downs in life or how to care for your children or how to deal with a successful marriage, those are all introductory courses that are delivered in the public divisions. They're short. There's not a lot of weird stuff in them. They're they're almost secular. There's not really a whole lot of religious mumbo jumbo. Keeping Scientology working is nowhere near that area. If you know keeping Scientology working is the sort of the penultimate policy in Scientology. I've done whole videos breaking it all down. It's very important, but it's not given to people when they first walk in the door on these beginning introductory courses. It's very light. The gradient, the toughness, the ethics trouble people get into is all very hands-off. How you doing? Is it going okay? Do you like the course? It's that kind of attitude towards new people. They're not hardcore, live or die if you don't make it. That comes in the other area where courses are delivered in a Scientology organization. Division 4. That's the technical division or the production division. Every single service organization in Scientology has a Division 4, and that's where the major services or major courses are delivered. That's also where the major auditing actions are delivered. That's where you would go to get auditing that would cost you thousands of dollars per 12-and-a-half-hour chunk of auditing, because that's how they sell it, is by number of hours of auditing. So you buy 12-and-a-half hours and you go get it. And when it's delivered in Division 4, when you're in that area, now you're a real Scientologist. You're not getting the lightweight stuff anymore. You're getting the real deal. And that's so you can get the high-level auditing happens in Division 4 and the high-level training. It's called the Academy. That's the course room that is in Division 4 is called the Academy. And the course room that's in the public area is called the public course room. They're both public course rooms per se, right? In other words, they deliver services to paying public. You come in, you pay some money, you do the class. But it's called the public courses because it's in the public divisions, which is in Division 6. That's the entry level stuff, and the pro stuff in Div 4. I thought you might be interested in some of the reasons why Scientologists do training. Because if you think about it, why train at all? You come into Scientology and the goal is to get to operating Thetan. And theoretically, you don't really need any training at all. You don't have to learn much of anything in order to get auditing, hold the cans, be asked questions or be given commands and run through those commands or answer those questions and look in your past and find your past lives and find all the traumatic episodes and run them out. That's auditing. And you could just go in and pay thousands and thousands of dollars and not want to do any training and just go up the processing side of the bridge. A lot of people who come into Scientology, that's what they want to do. So training is something that has to generally be sold to people, unless there's something specific they're trying to resolve. And usually those are the kind of things that get resolved in the public division courses. Generally, Scientologists are not huge on training. I was kind of an exception, but and some people who come in are really insatiably curious about Scientology and all the things L. Ron Hubbard had to say about it. So you buy classes or courses and you do them and you get to listen to Hubbard's lectures and go through study materials where he's written, he wrote thousands and thousands of bulletins and policy letters where he lays all this out. And people go and learn that stuff. But most of the time for Scientologists, they have to be sold on it. And it was funny because in the 70s, they actually put together a list of reasons why people should get trained. And I thought it might amuse you to go through some of those reasons. But it also will help establish the mindset of somebody coming into an academy and doing auditor training, because that's what you do in the academy, is you train to become an auditor. And you are expected, when you get trained as an auditor, to actually audit. You know, as part of the classwork, you have to do some practice auditing on somebody else, and it's the real deal. It's kind of like when you go do driver's training, you can go and do a simulator and you know, learn how to drive with the simulator, but you got to get out there and actually do some driving if you're ever going to be a driver. It's the same thing with an auditor. One of the things that David Miscavige has done that has ruined much of Scientology training, and has for the last 20 years, was he changed how training was done a little bit. Well, actually quite a bit, a tremendously large amount, so as to extend the length of time it takes to get through training. It used to be a fairly rapid thing. If you can come in, pay for the course, boom, boom, boom. A couple weeks later, they were done. But now, with all these heavy, long prerequisite courses and all this work that has to get done on them, it takes people months and months and months to get through these classes. You'll also see why when we go through the content of some of these classes. We're only going to go through a couple of them, but you'll get the point. So why would Scientologists train? Well, reason number one, there are 71 of these. I am not going to read all of them. I'm just going to go through a couple of them to kind of give you the flavor of it. One, when a person is trained, he has the know-how to handle all situations in life. This training is essential to build respect for one's self and others. Training for life is kind of a sales line in Scientology. When you go into auditing and you are receiving auditing, you don't necessarily understand everything that's going on. You don't understand why you're being asked certain questions, why you're being asked certain questions over and over and over again, because a lot of the auditing is repetitive. It's the same question fired at you over and over for hours. And you don't really understand any of Hubbard's theories or ideas about the mind, the body, the spirit, or life. So training is where you learn that stuff. And the sales line here is that when you learn this stuff, it's much more valuable than a college education or any other kind of education you could get, because you're learning about the mind, the body, the spirit, and life. What's more important than those? Those are the fundamental building blocks of life itself, right? Everything in your life is, it runs into these things or has something to do with these things. So you should know about this stuff in order to get along better in life. Also, an advantage to training is that you can co-audit. And that means that you can work with another person who's also training, and you can audit him, he can audit you, and you can go back and forth and get up the bridge by doing that. So co-auditing is a legitimate way to do Scientology. It's a much cheaper way because you just have to work with another student and you guys audit each other. And I think I even explained that in my last Q&A, or in the last week or two in the Q&A shows I talked about the whole co-auditing thing. Okay, another reason. Whereas in the process of auditing, you delete charge from the being, only with training does the being get the know-how. With this know-how, your integrity with others improves. So charge is a term used in Scientology for mental trauma or stress. It's got electrical charge. Hubbard made claims about the fact that it's actually electrically charged mental mass that hangs out in your vicinity. You can't see it or weigh it because it's so tiny, but it exists and it exerts and has an influence on you. So when you go into session and you run through some traumatic episode, it's called, and you get rid of it, it's called blowing charge or getting rid of charge, okay? That's just a Scientology slanguage for that. Another reason for training, hear this all the time, 50% is auditing, 50% is training, and 50% is doing. You see that the idea here is that you have this bridge, right? As per the videos that I made, and you have a training side and you have an auditing side. So 50% of the bridge is auditing and 50% is training, but then the gimmick here, the sales line is, and 50% is going out and doing. And if you don't get trained, you don't know what to do. You know, you go in session, you blow all this charge and you feel great, but then what? You don't know. But if you're trained, you're supposed to know. You don't, by the way, but you're supposed to. Another reason training is using Scientology. It allows one to help clear the planet. It allows you to really get on the bridge. In the end, you'll be able to say you helped. An advantage of training is to know the technology and handle life and livingness and increase your own personal well-being. I love livingness. You know, it's so funny. When I was in Scientology, that this NESS suffix that Hubbard would add to words to make them nouns or make it some other kind of noun. I mean, livingness is a noun of the action of living, right? And anyway, I was really used to that when I was in Scientology, and the longer I've been out, the weirder that looks. The untrained one can be gotten out of the mess mankind is in, but the only way to stay out and make sure it doesn't happen again is get trained. See, one of the things in Scientology about, you know, you have this whole concept of past lives and future lives where you're going to live again. One of the biggest fears Scientologists have is that they're going to die before they get all the way through OT and they're going to forget everything. Because there's, according to Hubbard, there are mechanisms in place called between lives implants that you receive when you die. You die, your spirit goes off and gets implanted, and you have to forget everything. And you got to start from scratch all over again. The only way to bust out of that cycle, according to Scientology, is to get trained so you retain the knowledge of what's going on. And so when you come back around next lifetime, you'll still remember because you'll avoid those implants and they won't have as much of an effect on you, right? If you only get auditing, you might not know what's going on when you die, and you might get caught in one of these theta traps that exist out there. They're kind of like little bear traps out there for spiritual entities, and called thetans in Scientology, right? And you die, and you don't know where to go or what to do. You're wandering around like, oh, now what do? I guess I got to go find another body somewhere. And if you're not trained, you don't know the life, your body, mind, anything, right? So you're just going to wander around and do the same crap you did 10 million times before, and you're going to end up in another body, and you're going to forget everything, and maybe you won't even get back into Scientology. And wouldn't that be a disaster? Well, according to Scientologists, it would. So this is another reason why training is pushed as something that is supposed to be important for Scientologists. Whereas auditing handles past upsets, training shows you how to handle things as they occur in present time. This training adds enhancement to your personal well-being. And like I said, I'm just kind of randomly going through some of these arguments, right? Auditors are the most valuable beings on the planet. This is a very big line in Scientology. There is no one anywhere who's more valuable to mankind in general, according to Scientology, than auditors. So it's definitely big. If you haven't noticed yet, there's a lot of status buttons being pushed here with these arguments. That's par for the course for Scientology because Scientology plays on people's status buttons all the time. We'll just go through a couple more. Trained auditors make the best executives. Okay, so in theory, that's supposed to be true, but I'll remind everybody right now that David Miscavige is a trained auditor, and he is one of the worst executives on planet Earth. All right. Yes, blah, blah, blah. Okay, here's a couple more, and then we'll wrap up. You become more capable and able as a being once you know the mechanics and workings of the mind and how a thetan reacts. You get all the knowledge on each subject or part you study. From that, you yourself can develop and increase your own abilities and therefore make tremendous gains by just study alone. You get data you can actually use in life. You make things happen for you which others would think are miracles. Okay? So that's the headspace that people get into when they're being sold Scientology training. So that, there they go, and they go in there and they get started, okay? So now what are they going to get started on?